Another edition of Riding Home, SEC Media Days edition. Dean Legge and Dylan Weber here. First and foremost, Dylan, this is your first Media Days.
You know, it's really overwhelming. It's been
Are you serious?
No, not at all. It's been really cold in the room, and I can't stand it.
Gators went today. So did Missouri, and so did LSU, but Florida.
Yeah, our main focus is on Florida today. I don't think Dan Mullen said anything crazy. I was expecting a little more shit talking from him, kind of.
Didn't happen. The biggest thing that I got out, he was very calm when I watched him talk today. He talked a lot about expectations for the Gators, exceeding expectations. He mentioned 3 times that Florida finished number 6 in the coaches poll, which...
Yeah, he really wanted to push that.
Did he talk about that in the big room?
Mm-hmm.
But I talked to some people that cover Florida during the day, and they're not quite as optimistic about all of this. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I thought Felipe Franks was a halfway impressive guy, but they definitely, they're like everybody else in this league. Everybody has issues.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is Felipe Franks. I mean,
I think it can be. It
can be, but I don't think that's the main thing to be concerned about. I think he can be a little erratic with the ball and make some dumb choices, but overall he does make some plays, and I think he's a more than adequate quarterback in this league. And he's not a guy who can win you the SEC championship, but he's a guy who has proven he can win you 10 games.
So you don't think that they can win the league?
Not with him, no. But I think they can, win 10 games.
They don't exactly have the most difficult schedule on earth. I mean, the Miami game's at the beginning, which I'll say this, and I think they totally will win that game. But it is a must-win for Florida after this offseason.
Absolutely,
and it's Miami.
Yeah, it's more than just bragging rights for it. I mean,
they have to win that.
Yeah, especially it's the first game of the season. It will set the tone, especially on how their season will go. Especially leading up to Georgia.
Yeah, they got to go to Baton Rouge. They've hosted LSU these last couple of years, and last year that was their big win of the year. I mean, the Michigan game, yeah, but the LSU game was their big win.
Yeah, and I mean that's going to be way tougher this year. I mean, Baton Rouge. My first trip was last year there. And wow, that place is legit. That's a tough place to play.
But I think I was talking to a longtime beat writer, Josh Kendall at the State, and I said, what % chance do you think Florida has to win the East? And he said, 10%.
I mean, and then what? Georgia,
is that too low?
Georgia a 90% chance?
I think because we cover Georgia often, we know where the bodies are buried, and we talk about the bodies that are buried all the time. We don't talk about Jake Fromm's efficiencies. DeAndre Swift, how good he is when he's normal, the offensive line. The defense is very good at Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they're not, there's nothing shabby about the defense either.
I mean, of course, we always want to pick out the bad part because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for...
No one wants to know that Andrew... I mean, it's not news if Andrew Thomas doesn't give up a sack.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
that's what should happen.
I mean, and there's more good than there is bad, so we want to figure out, if Georgia was to lose a game, we want to try and figure out where that would come from. We know what will win the game.
I think they could lose to Florida. I just don't think that they'll lose the division. I mean, I think that Florida, when you look at the Gators this past season, the humbling loss to Georgia, a lot of people are talking about that game was, one possession game going into the fourth quarter. Well, it was a 3-possession game at the end of the game.
Well, and also, I mean, yes, that is true, but you never felt as if Florida
was in control.
Yeah, and they were in striking distance at times, but they never really took firm control of the game.
Well, they only led for a drive.
Yeah,
I think. But back to my point, which was that what's propelled this right now is everyone believes in Michigan.
Everyone always does. That's always the preseason hype for Michigan.
So they clubbed Michigan over the head badly. I didn't think they'd beat Michigan. Not only did they destroyed Michigan. Okay, so that's a lot of what's going on here. And looking at the Michigan game is a little bit like only looking at Georgia, Texas, which everyone is doing now too.
Yeah.
So that is flying past the double-digit loss at home to Missouri, the holding on like crazy to beat South Carolina at home, the performance against Vanderbilt, which was bad.
I mean, yeah, were they down at halftime in that game?
Oh yeah, well they won the game by 10, but they were losing the whole first half.
Yeah.
And frankly, if I'm not mistaken, the Vanderbilt game was tight in the fourth quarter. So the same logic that you're applying to Georgia, you could apply towards Vanderbilt. Now, I don't, and then they lost to Kentucky. They had a great win over LSU. Florida, I think the Gators could beat Georgia if Georgia's not ready mentally, if Felipe Franks really plays well. They have very good receivers at Florida. But the question a lot of people who cover the Gators that I know are wondering about, I guess you could say, is will he have time to throw the ball?
I mean, I doubt it. And
against legit, LSU, Georgias of the world. And I think they better watch it in Columbia. I think they better watch it in Columbia when they go to play South Carolina. They better watch it.
Florida is a team that could easily give up a game. They're a team that they could come into a game sleepwalking, and
they did that several times last year.
And people forget about that, like you said, because everyone remembers is the most recent game, and
right. We're prisoners of the moment.
And because those games were nationally televised, those were the biggest games that everyone saw and everyone remembers.
And that's why no one thinks there's any possible way. If you were to talk to anyone. There's no way that anyone other than Clemson and Alabama can play for the national championship. I mean, it's just like suspended development. I mean, we are only. I don't know what day the national championship game was on, but we are at January 9th, 2019, and we haven't moved forward at all, and we won't until the Gators and Canes play. And everyone's season then will be a week-by-week thing. No one will remember what happened in 2018 at all.
I mean, yeah, like we were saying, that's why that game is a very important.
They will.
They should.
If they do not beat Miami, you got some concerns at that stage.
I think it's even more than concerns. I think you would just have straight problems at that point. I mean, Miami, they're coming off a very rough season.
Total coaching change.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of a meltdown within that program.
That's probably a good way to put it. But they will. The Gators will win that game. I would be surprised for sure. And I don't think Tennessee can hang with Florida. I think Georgia's the best team in the East. I think the whole world thinks that.
But 90%. The best?
I think 90% is high, but
I mean, more than 80? I would say.
What would you say percentage-wise Alabama is to win the West? Are you really going to pick LSU over them?
No.
Right. So then who else would beat them? I mean, right now we have 3 teams in college football that seemed, if you believe the hype, that are destined to play in the college football playoff. Clearly, Clemson and Alabama, they are both 6-1 to get to the college football playoff. Those are significantly higher than 50%.
That's like 75.
I don't know. I can't do the math. But Georgia's 50. They're 1-1, so they're 50-50 to get in there, which are pretty good odds. Quite frankly.
I mean, it's coin flip.
After that, it kind of falls off a cliff, and you pick whoever you want. Michigan, Ohio State. We talked a lot last night. We should have recorded it about Michigan and Ohio State. But if you're the Gators, you're trying to wiggle your way into the playoff because that's what's sort of being discussed right now with Florida. I just feel a lot like there's reaching right now.
I mean, but that means Florida has to beat Alabama.
Yes, and Georgia. And if they do that,
could they
do that, they are national championship contenders for sure. They would have the best 2 wins in college football.
They could technically lose to Georgia.
They could. No, they're not going to lose to Georgia and get to the playoff because Georgia's not going to lose 2 other games in the East that aren't Florida. I mean, who else are they going to lose to? Auburn and who?
A&M.
But okay, then so Florida sweeps everybody. They beat Georgia. In your scenario,
it's a very far stretch.
In your scenario, they just beat LSU on the road. They beat Georgia in Jacksonville, and then they beat Alabama in the conference championship game. They would totally not only deserve to be in the playoff. They should be the number 1 seed in that scenario.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a very far stretch.
So you're not buying it?
No, not at all.
Right.
But I mean, we're looking at all.
Well, who is Georgia's best win going to be when you get to December if they don't lose a game? It'd be Florida.
Florida, maybe A&M.
We don't know about.
Or in the SEC, maybe Notre Dame.
I mean, Notre Dame, Auburn, Florida, Texas A&M. Georgia has a complicated schedule for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, all teams that you go game by game, and Georgia should win it every game. But
they should, and that's not how it works. I mean, they've gone from being 10.5 point over under to now it's 11. The only two above them, Clemson and Alabama at 11.5. Clemson, that seems like a safe bet, man. Who are they going to lose to on that schedule?
I don't know.
I mean, they play Texas A&M at home.
Yeah, there's really no one.
There's no one they play that's going to challenge them. Everybody's like, oh, well, Syracuse,
Well, I mean,
get out of here. Well, I get it.
I'm not saying Syracuse is good, but Clemson has proved that Syracuse is a strong.
Clemson has proved they can lose to anyone at any time. I mean, they're good at that. I mean, NC State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, these are not good teams, but they show up for the big games. So Clemson kind of just they can stumble all they want to, so long as they get to the playoff. They seem to play well in the playoff. I mean, they've gotten beaten once pretty bad in the playoff, but other than that, they play pretty well in those games. There's something to be said for not getting beat up during the season and being able to ramp up for something. Alabama at 11.5. They got some games they could lose in theory, but
yeah,
their non-SEC schedule is bad.
Yeah, it usually is.
Well, not as bad as it is this year. I mean, you're replacing somebody like USC or something like that with Duke. I mean, they're not going to lose to Duke, and there is no shot they lose to Duke. And last year they opened with Louisville, which was really bad too.
Yeah, and I mean, but yeah, they could lose to LSU theoretically, but everyone says that every year.
They could lose to LSU, but
they haven't lost since 2011. Every year that game is really hyped up, and it ends almost the same.
Well,
way.
CBS has had enough. They're not going to put that thing on at night. They're going to go with Georgia Notre Dame.
Well, that's a safer bet, I'd say. I mean,
for in terms of ratings.
Yeah.
But if you got 8 to 11 million people watching every single year, and you're going to go away from that, that means that you're looking for 11 to 12 million, which is bumping up on normal conference championship numbers. The SEC has huge conference championship numbers, something like 16 to 18 million people. You're turning your back on a Sugar Bowl audience to go with something new. Now, it's Notre Dame.
I mean, you're talking about two huge TV
they're
audiences.
big brands, no doubt. No question. Georgia's a bigger... Don't at me. Georgia's a bigger TV brand than Notre Dame over these last few years. No, don't shake your shoulders. The fact is that they're a bigger brand.
Does the NBC affiliate change that though? Does that skew numbers at all?
They don't draw the number that Georgia does.
Yeah, so if you look straight up.
Just straight up, if you look at, I mean, there's no question who has the most viewers over the last 2 years, it's Georgia and Alabama, period. So those two have the biggest numbers. They've played in the biggest games and, period.
But people also, I mean, one thing that, CBS likes in that game is that it's relatively new. I mean, we saw it last year.
Georgia Notre Dame.
Yeah, we saw it a couple years ago, but now these teams are... It's going to be a top 10 matchup.
Yes.
Maybe top 5, maybe.
Well, Georgia will be top 5. Question is, will Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Well, who will lose before that game? And that's week 4.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some losing that can happen, and that not for Georgia and Notre Dame, I don't think, but for other people, whoever they are. I mean, I don't. Will Texas be in front of Notre Dame
to start the season?
I mean, they could be. People got to take Texas seriously, man. I mean, I know they lost some guys, I guess. But Texas or Oklahoma, someone with one loss is coming out of the Big 12.
Yeah, and I think...
And if it's Texas...
It'll either be Texas or Oklahoma. No one else.
Yeah, but Texas got to win the game that matters at the end of the season.
Yeah, of course.
The game in Dallas is just an exhibition at this point.
As long as you win every other game, yeah.
Yes.
Which Texas is, shaky at. But...
That's true.
The Big 12 is probably weaker than it has been, excluding... Oklahoma.
It's apparently it's Texas, Oklahoma, and Iowa State, and no one's going to pick Iowa State to win the thing.
No, and that's one thing is they could beat Texas, I guess, but they can't win the league.
So they're the Gators. They can beat Georgia, but they can't win the league.
Yeah.
So you are of the opinion that 2 teams can win this league. Georgia and Alabama. You do not buy LSU and you do not buy Florida. I don't think many people are going to drop off the ledge after that. It's either those two. You don't buy Auburn.
No, I don't buy Auburn at all. all.
And obviously no one else in the East.
LSU again could make some noise, but I don't think they could win the league.
But today, okay, so we're going on long here. But today was about, to me, the Gators. When we heard from Kelly Bryant, you wrote a lot about that. I don't want to spend a lot of time on Kelly Bryant. If these kids are all kids, they all work and all this stuff. Kelly Bryant, in many ways, was a visionary with leaving when he did with Clemson. But if you're concerned about Kelly Bryant, you just go back and watch the film. He's not a great quarterback.
He's not great, but it's probably better than anything Missouri had. And he still was able to take Clemson to the playoffs. I mean, that does say something.
That says two things. It says he could take a team in the ACC to the playoff, and that team just could not compete in the playoff with him as the quarterback. And a year later, a team that lost by 3 touchdowns, 24-6.
Yeah.
Okay, so multiple, won by 30 or whatever it was. In a game that was a total blowout. Blowouts happen. But Clemson in 2017 was never blowing out Alabama.
No.
And if you play the 18 game again, Clemson probably wins it at least half the time. But how many times were those blowouts?
Well, especially with
with Kelly Bryant as the quarterback, they would not win the game. Period. I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, they escaped Texas A&M with him and Trevor going back and forth.
But I mean, still, I don't think anyone was expecting him to come in here and. Well, of course, Missouri can't even make the playoffs, but I don't think anyone's expecting.
So as it stands today, Mizzou cannot.
Yeah,
they have appealed that.
They have appealed that, and the SEC commissioner,
Greg Sankey.
Yeah, he said today that he thought that there was a decent chance that it could get overturned. That's all he said on it. But yeah, so right now they can't even go to the postseason. But that doesn't mean they can't, make some noise a little bit at least.
Well, they have, them and Texas A&M have combined for 2 division wins, and those were both Missouri's. And I got to tell you, certainly Missouri doesn't look possibly further away than right. I mean, they look a long way away from winning the division anytime soon.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, they had their opportunities in early years.
I wonder if Barry Odom walked through Radio Row with a hat on, what percentage of those radio guys would actually know who he is? See, Dan Mullen is a peacock. He loves it. Mm-hmm. And so when people wonder why is he saying all this shit that he says, that's who he is.
He likes to be out there.
He's out there, man. And
Ed Orgeron too, if we're going about it.
You think he's a peacock as well? Is Kirby one?
A little.
See, I think Kirby's a little more, for lack of a better term, shady about it. He's not trying to be public, really. He's more of a quiet ninja type.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, than a peacock. Yeah. And I don't know if there are other peacocks in the league. Maybe Chad Morris. I don't know. Jimbo definitely. Jimbo is. Yeah. And that fits A&M right now.
Yeah, I mean, because they're just trying to kind of kickstart that program.
Georgia goes tomorrow. A&M goes tomorrow. Ole Miss, and who's opposite A&M? Someone decent is opposite A&M. Someone we care about is opposite
Tennessee.
A&M. Tomorrow it is in the afternoons. It's Jeremy Pruitt and the Tennessee Vols.
That'll be interesting. I'm actually kind of excited about that.
He's got a real job on his hands up there too.
Well, that's just such a hard job to have.
That is a brutal job.
I mean, similar to Nebraska, it's just hard to pull recruits
no question.
To those 2 schools.
No question.
You don't really have a lot of in-state talent.
You don't have any in-state talent.
I mean, you had Cade Mays, but lost him, and then I think they got his brother.
But you can't, when you have 7 Division I kids at SEC level at least in your state, or just call it 10, you can't lose 3. Yeah. Then your whole class is 7 dudes from Tennessee, which is a third at best of what your class should be. Jeremy's got a tough job.
And the tough part is...
And they lost to Vanderbilt last year. That ain't good either.
Yeah, if you're losing...
They got beat pretty good by Vanderbilt.
If you're losing Vanderbilt, that's never good.
Have they lost 4 or 5 to Vanderbilt?
They've lost several of the last...
Several to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, they do not have a good track record against Vanderbilt.
Tennessee, man. We were watching Clint Sterner in Tennessee the other night. And so you were not alive for this, but I can tell you right now, they were powerful They were a big deal. They owned Alabama. They owned Alabama. Now they weren't what Alabama is now. Mm-hmm. Don't confuse yourself. But they dominated everyone except the Gators. And when they got that one shot, when the Gators missed that one, when they missed the one extra point in overtime, they won the national championship that season. They survived the games they had to survive. Including Arkansas, Florida, Syracuse, I think it was. They had several games they survived.
I mean, but at that time they were also doing a better job pulling kids out of
nationally. From Atlanta, from Augusta, nationally. They were a national program. They are at best a regional program right now. And that's the challenge Jeremy's got right now.
And when you play Georgia and Alabama
annually, and the Gators every year.
Like that.
That's a brutal
I mean, you are
job.
Lucky to win one of 3 of those games. And it's almost annually going to be.
Did they win 2 of 3 at one point? They won 2 of 3, I think, in 2016, or did they not? Did they not beat the Gators in? I can't remember. I mean, they have fumbled away a lot. They are not good against that group. I don't think they've had a top 10 win in this century. Now I could be wrong. Don't hate, but
this century or decade?
This century.
Since the year 2000?
I'm not sure, but it's been a while. A top 10 win.
I can't name any.
No, they'd certainly have had one top 10 win at least, because it's probably this decade, because when they beat Georgia in 2004, Georgia's number 3 team in the country in Athens. So they had that win. But in this decade, I don't think they've had, and this is year 10 of this decade.
Well, I mean, what's their best year of this decade? 2016?
Probably 16.
And that was still
that was a
really underachieving year for them. I mean, they did.
It has been a tough row to hoe for the Vols, and has been that way for a while. That's a tough job. And we'll talk more about Tennessee tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Georgia goes tomorrow. We probably won't talk more about Tennessee tomorrow, but we'll talk more about all of it. We're gonna get this up on our various outlets. Go to dawgpost.com, dawgpost.com. Dylan, I gotta start introducing us. This is Dean Legge for Dawg Post, Dylan Weber for dylanweber.net.
Yeah, hopefully y'all stuck through this long.
They have. They do. They listen. It's amazing. I don't get it. All right.
My dad doesn't.
Your dad listens?
No, he doesn't make it all the way through.
Poor Eric. All right. Night-night.